Well, Amy, you're the moderator and you're ready to put all of us on the spot.
Yes.
We have a number of questions that have come up last night and then today. And if you'll just field it, and then maybe I can ask somebody to handle that question.
That
That
sounds that sounds great.
okay.
Absolutely. Yes. So we'll just give a few seconds while Mike gets everyone back on the screen.
Okay.
Kind of look like Brady Bunch, maybe, to the folks at home.
That's okay.
I'll
Brady
go.
Bunch was good.
Yes. I'll probably go with just a few that we got from that last session, just
Okay.
for that part. And then so we have a variety of questions from the whole day.
Good.
So the first one is about a district commissioner. Someone said that their new pack and troop is in desperate need of a commissioner, and they were trying to work with their district commissioner, and they suggested that they recruit their own. They have a lot of experience, and they've asked a lot of experienced scouters, but with no luck. So do we have any suggestions on how to get this valuable support?
Trevor, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, the district commissioner is responsible for recruiting new unit commissioners at that level, and they should engage in solving that. Certainly, the district commissioner can receive suggestions of candidates and reasons why, but it should be the unit shouldn't be recruiting their commissioner. It should be the district commissioner doing that.
You know, before we leave that, I couldn't agree with Trevor more. I think that's a Latter-day Saint 107-year history of scouting approach, and that is the way that we usually built strong units from weak units is we called a good, strong scoutmaster, and then he went to training and realized there was something like a commissioner, so he went to the bishopric, and the bishopric, when he asked for a committee, would say, well, who do you suggest? And so you went out and recruited your own committee, but that's really not the way to do it. Now, I have to tell you, what Trevor said is right, but if you can't get them to move, you might look for good people in your area to suggest to them because they may not know the people that are in your area. And if you have somebody that would be ideal as a commissioner, make some suggestions to them. You know, there's nothing wrong with good quality ideas coming up from the ground.
Excellent. All right, so there's some folks on the chat I've seen that have never heard of a new unit commissioner, so shout out to Amy for getting us up to speed on that.
Way to go.
Yeah. This one just says that they've, skipped that step in the past. Maybe Amy can shed some light or someone else on, kind of where that person gets lost.
So right now, I think it's just important to realize that in general, most of our councils and districts have a lack of commissioners. We just don't have enough simply to cover all of the units that we're responsible for. And it's really difficult to find one person to focus on one unit for a period of 3 years. So a lot of times the district commissioner and their assistant, the district commissioner and their assistant district commissioners end up really chasing down the units that are really struggling and falling apart. And those units that are kind of surviving and floating on their own, just continue to keep trucking on. But I agree absolutely with everything that Charles said to definitely make recommendations. If you have parents or grandparents in your area that have been involved in scouting for years, maybe they don't have their own kids in the scouting program, being a commissioner is a great opportunity. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. And it's not as much effort as being a direct scout leader is. And so it's a great opportunity to serve if you have less time than what you think that you do. So
yeah, absolutely. I would agree. If you're a delegator, commissioning is a place for you.
And if you're a teacher and a listener,
yes.
and can I just suggest, don't write them off because they've got gray hair. And I was teaching this when I had dark brown hair. But just because they have gray hair or no hair at all, or maybe they're 65 or 70 or 75 or 80, for heaven's sakes, realize there are a lot of people out there who have some wonderful experience in scouting, who are good teachers, who would make wonderful, wonderful unit commissioners.
Fantastic. Okay, so now I'm just kind of going to jump all over the place with different types of questions. We had a couple of folks ask about Vanguard and if the association's keeping a list of Latter-day Saint Scouters, or if there's any way to connect Scouters now across the country.
Mark, do you want to take that one?
Yes, we keep very good records of who the members of Vanguard are. And if you have a question, just send it to info@vanguardscouting.org, and we'll do our best to connect you with other Vanguard members in the area where you live.
And what we'll probably do in order to prevent privacy, we'll probably contact that individual first and provide your information to them, and so that they can get in touch with you. So.
Okay. And I think a couple of different variations of that question may be pointed back to, is the Boy Scouts of America keeping a list of scouts that have transitioned into community units or new Latter-day Saint units that have been organized? And unless Mark has a different answer, I think that answer is no at the moment.
And to keep any records in terms of who we are and what our religious faiths are.
Right.
Charles and I are working on that, but I don't anticipate any change anytime soon. So it's really just going to be networking in terms of who we know in the communities and who they know.
You know, one of the challenges that we've had, and I know that Paul Moffat has been working on this diligently, and if anybody can get it done, Paul can. But you know, years ago, when we went to the Jamboree, we had no idea who the Latter-day Saint youth were, both boys and girls, because we had venturers that were there. Didn't have a clue. And so when I became the head commissioner or the head chaplain, we asked them to put on their application form a religious preference. Now, most did, but some didn't. But at least we knew where they were. And it wasn't particularly those that were in the large Latter-day Saint units that came from Utah. We sent 144 plus 16 leaders. But it was the two that were in Biloxi who were in a Jewish troop or a Methodist troop or a Catholic troop. And the Methodists felt the same way. If they had two youth who were in a venturing crew that was mostly Latter-day Saint, and they had two Methodist youth, they wanted to make sure where they were. We're still working on that because the current application form does not identify a religious preference. And so for that reason, we're unable to keep that record, but we're still working on it. And I know Paul has, so.
Okay.
And one other quick shout out, Amy. We do have a Vanguard Facebook page, and go on there for more details. That's a good place to gather as well.
Vanguard
Perfect.
Scouting.
Yeah, and I think maybe we could put it in the notes from this gathering so that everybody can go there later too. On the Jamboree topic, we have some questions from a couple of participants wondering if Vanguard's going to have a presence at the National Jamboree, and if so, will it be in the form of a merit badge booth or any other type of activity? I know we touched a little bit on it, but if somebody can elaborate, that'd be great.
Actually, Mark, I'm going to let you speak on the merit badge one because we really haven't talked about that. In the past, the church has been involved in the family life and the genealogy and family history merit badge. Is that correct?
Yes.
And whether we do that or not, of course, the church will not support us, I mean, they won't do it because they really supported those merit badges in the past. But we will be involved so far as a religious relationships booth. We'll be there to explain Vanguard and the beliefs of the church. And so we'll have the same type of presence that has been there in the past. Mark, do you want to speak to the, go ahead.
We'll also support chaplaincy.
Correct. And I think, Mark, you and I need to talk about the merit badges because I'm not sure whether those doors are open, but we ought to at least put it on our agenda because that's a good thought.
Okay. All right. So Wayne asks, can someone speak on the challenge when a troop that their child is involved in camps on Sunday? So for instance, if the troop is consistently doing a lot of their activities on Sunday and doesn't, and so then the parent would have to drive the child there or come pick them up early.
Wayne and Roma, you had an experience with somebody with a unit in your area. Do you want to speak to that? You had somebody who was looking for a unit who is a Latter-day Saint. Are you there?
We are here.
Oh, good. You had somebody who was looking for a unit who was a Latter-day Saint and actually joined a community unit but had some challenges.
We did, and then when the unit was started that we started that had Latter-day Saint leadership and tried to adhere to those kind of things, they moved over, and it means that it's a lot farther travel for them, but sometimes you make that choice. I'd also just say that I wouldn't totally discard community units. We have so many great community units here. And if your only problem with them is the Sunday camping and so forth, it's like anything else when you're a minority religion in an area. You make that choice as a family. And if that's an opportunity that you see to make a difference, more power to you. It's the same kind of choices that we make in this area all the time as to whether our outstanding soccer players are going to play in the traveling tournaments on weekends. And I see Amy and Trevor shaking their head because we're familiar with this. And yet on the other hand, I do see community units as a great opportunity to be that light.
And in most cases, those scout leaders in those units will be sensitive to the requests that we have and our needs. And if we explain to them that we have to go home Saturday night, they're usually receptive to that and will support it.
By the way, we've always, when we talk about community units, sometimes we're not talking about just a Rotary unit or a PTA. We're talking about other units other than these Latter-day Saint centric units. And I'll tell you, if you want to see a great unit that functions, just go to one of your Methodist units or your Catholic units or your Lutheran units in your community, and you'll be surprised that they're not just 5 or 10 individuals, but sometimes they have 50, 75, 100 youth in their units, and they really click, and they've got youth adult advisors, and they are having a classic scouting experience. So these are wonderful experiences, but you need to make that change. In some ways, it's the same way that we've dealt with a wood badge, and that is sometimes in a council, the only option is a wood badge that goes a week and that goes over Sunday. Sometimes we have, they've called it Latter-day Saint wood badge, where you go Saturday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, instead of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it's really just keeping it off Sunday. And I'd talk to the folks. They'll be sensitive to those needs, and you'll just have to make a determination as to the importance of being trained. Mark?
Yeah, one big difference that we haven't really addressed in our conference this weekend is that unlike the church where you go to your ward because of where you physically live, scouting's not that way. You can go to any troop, any pack, anywhere in the valley or area. And it's really up to parents to go find out, you know, what's the best fit for our family.
Yeah.
So boundaries are not an issue, and take a serious look at that, because there's some great units out there like Charles just explained.
And you know, if you haven't been involved in a district or a council level, I encourage you to do that. Sometimes we're a little, we kind of stay among our own, but you know, as Mark and I have worked on a national level, some of our closest friends, we've got 2 Jewish rabbis that I'm as close to as brothers. We've got some wonderful Catholic priests that we're very, very close to, and some Methodists and Lutherans and Muslims. And these are good people who never needed a call to be involved in scouting. They were there because they wanted to make a difference. And they are just tremendous men and women who are just really fun to work with. And one of my Jewish rabbis calls me on every holiday. He wishes me a happy Easter and a Merry Christmas, and it's just really fun. Another Jewish rabbi in New Jersey is one of the best voices that we have when somebody is critical of the church on the East Coast. Boy, I'll tell you, he is a great and a wonderful crusader and an advocate. So we have these wonderful friends. When Patrick Henry says, the God of nations will raise up friends to fight our battles for us, you know, we fight each other's battles. And I remember being in one meeting where somebody was pretty tough on one of my Catholic priests, and I took that individual aside after, and I said, you need to understand, you do not treat my people that way. And we stand up for each other, and it's a wonderful brother and sisterhood that we have. Mark, you were going to say something.
I was just going to comment about one of the rabbis you mentioned. He found an article that was written over 100 years ago, and he sent it to Charles and I, and he said, I want to correct history. So he spent like 6 months writing this rebuttal to this 100-year-old document. And it was interesting. One of the BYU periodicals actually picked it up and published it.
They published it, yep. Yeah, so, okay, Amy, next question.
Okay, so we didn't get to a few of the questions last night, and this is one that was saved. So from President Ballard's comment, the church really didn't leave scouting, scouting left us. Someone wanted to ask about, what does that mean? What did he mean by that?
Yeah. Well, let me just mention that I'm going to turn it to Nettie, because she's moving forward like she wants to answer that question. Nobody can get inside a person's mind and know what President Ballard was thinking when he said that. But I know the heart of President Ballard, and there is no individual that is a finer individual than President Ballard is. I would push a peanut from here to Jackson County for him. He would do nothing to hurt anyone. I'll tell you what I think happened. I think he was in the middle. I think he was in Washington, D.C. or New York, and I think you got a reporter that probably caught him a little off guard, and he quoted something that had been said years and years and years ago, and that is that somebody had mentioned, you know, that the church will never leave scouting. Scouting will leave the church. For all of the reasons that Nettie mentioned last night, that's really not true. We can see what the church has done. It was time for the church to make this move. Mark mentioned it yesterday in a very appropriate way, and that is, you know, you can go all over the world and you find unity in the church. You can walk into the building, you feel at home. You can be in a sacrament meeting. You may not understand one word. I've been in Japan. I've been all over the world. You may not understand one word, but you understand the music. You understand the consistency of the order. You understand that there are going to be 3 individuals up on the stand. You're going to understand that people give prayers morning, you know, first and opening and closing prayers. There are going to be talks. If you come on fast meeting, it's going to be a fast meeting. You can go into a Sunday school class and everything is consistent. Doctrine is consistent across the world. Everything is consistent except in one place. And that was the youth program. And it was time. It was really time for the church to do this. We applaud them. We support them 100%. That's why these 2 awards are not to be separate, running in separate tracks. It is to help Latter-day Saints who are involved in scouting to be better involved and to catch a vision of these programs. I have to tell you that for some of these youth, unless they are taught how to set goals and given some ideas, they may have a hard time. But those in scouting will not, because they'll have all kinds of ideas. So they go, oh, physical goal, I can set that, or a mental goal, I can set that, or a spiritual goal, I have all of these things that I can do. So it's to strengthen those, it's to encourage them to do just what President Nelson has encouraged us all to do. So I don't know what President Ballard meant, but I will say that there are others that Nettie and Mark have both quoted and have been quoted several times, who have talked about this wonderful relationship that we have. So I wouldn't get so hung up with a single statement like that. I support President Ballard 100%, and I love him with all my heart. And I also love this great program. So I don't know what else we can say except that. Mark, is there anything else that?
I think you said it perfectly, Charles. Elder Ballard has a wonderful heart, and it's a knee-jerk reaction, at least in my opinion as well. And the sad thing is that that's what the AP picked up on. He did so much good back there.
He did.
He was back there, and unfortunately, that's really all that they reported on. So it's a little bit heartbreaking. That's a phrase that we've heard, that Mark and I just heard last week again from a neighbor about what, you know, the BSA left us, which we know isn't true. We can go back and read the joint statement.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can, pardon me?
let's forgive Elder Ballard. We love him.
Well, I'm not sure forgiveness. I think if there's anybody here who hasn't made a statement that they wish they could clarify, then we're in the wrong group, you know. But again, let's look at the heart of one of our faithful church leaders that we look at as a prophet, seer, and revelator. And this is a great, great soul. And I love Elder Ballard, President Ballard. I love the kingdom. I love scouting. And let's move ahead to strengthen the youth. Amy?
Wonderful. So we had a couple questions regarding the Order of the Arrow. So Stephen asks, will Vanguard take up the role of helping promote the Order of the Arrow, especially with the Surge program, and have a presence at the National Order of the Arrow conferences?
Mark, do you want to speak to that? You've been in the Order of the Arrow longer than I have. We both have it in our hearts, but
I have a great love for Order of the Arrow, but I just have to be honest with you. There are a lot of things we simply haven't discussed, and we have never once talked about Order of the Arrow. So that's coming. I'm very familiar with the Surge program. I helped write it. I helped design the emblem. I see the value in it, but it's simply something we haven't had a chance to even delve into. So just be patient with us.
There is one thing that we have talked about that's really important, and that is we're not going to do other people's work. We're going to be focused on Vanguard, and Vanguard is to help Latter-day Saints who are involved in scouting learn their duty to God and to be able to support them across the world. And so would we support a young man or a young woman being in Order of the Arrow? Absolutely. Is it a great organization? Absolutely. Does it do great service and provide wonderful leadership? Absolutely. But we're not going to be out promoting, as it were, Order of the Arrow. We might be involved in some committees just because they want somebody from the religious community to be involved, but I think that will not be our primary focus, just the same way as NISA will not be our primary focus, even though we want our youth to be able to get their Eagle Scout Award.
Wonderful. So there's lots of little questions about, like Mark mentioned, not all questions regarding Vanguard and the emblems have been answered yet. So I envision we'll have FAQs after this conference. So several of these smaller questions I'll lead to that. But someone did ask, my council made no invitation to the Latter-day Saint Scouts. It just happened. Will there be a focus from Vanguard or National to try to do this?
Mark, you want to try that one?
Oh, there won't be. National, just like Charles says, National's not going to do our work. If we want Latter-day Saints to be involved in scouting, we have to reach out. It's going to be a grassroots effort. We have millions, absolutely millions of Latter-day Saints in the United States and worldwide that have had wonderful experiences in scouting. They have uniforms in their closets, and many of them think that it's over. They think the partnership ended and therefore we can't be in scouting. So it's up to us, those on the computer, on the conference today, to be that voice, to say, you know what, scouting is just as important, if not more important, than any other extracurricular activity your children will be involved in. So come join us. There's plenty of room in our tent for you and your family.
And there's no reason, because we're halfway through 2019 or 2020, that one can't start their transition program now. It's not too late. Go ahead and start it tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, the other thing that Mark and I have talked about is Mark has done a wonderful work over the last 7 years or so in having having a team of Latter-day Saint Scouters across the country. And many of those have been the chair of Latter-day Saint Scouting Relationships Committees. We won't have scouting relationships committees, but what we will do, we will work with each council to encourage them to have on their relationships committee a Latter-day Saint representative who will also be a local council Vanguard representative who will be able to provide strength to, much in the same way as Mark has done that. And Mark has done a wonderful work in having regular meetings, most of the time telephone meetings with these individuals, and we'll continue to do that.
Wonderful. And if I could just add to that a bit, you know, I've worked with a lot of councils in the Northeast region. Now I'm starting to work with councils in the West, and you know, some folks just don't know what they don't know. I actually just text Mark earlier, you know, if I had Trevor and Amy working as a professional in their council, I'd feel like it was Christmas every day, like I won the lottery. So I would definitely support what Mark said, you know, reach out to your professionals, do what you can. They need your support, and then you need their support. So
Great.
I know we're over time, Charles. I don't know if you want to take a couple more questions or.
Actually, let's take those questions. Mark had his hand in the air, and anytime Mark has his hand in the air, it's either to test the wind or he's got a good answer. So Mark.
Well, I just know, Amy, there's a couple of WISM or Vanguard questions that we do need to address. One is regarding WISM and one is regarding venturing.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Can you go ahead and run with those? Did they just come in and I missed them?
Yeah, actually, they were clarifications of some questions, and I think, Mark, the clear answer is Vanguard awards will be available only to those scouting organizations that are recognized by WISM. Period. End of discussion. There are some quote scouting organizations that are not, that will not be available to them.
Okay. And absolutely, thank you for reminding me that. And then the other question, Charles, I think was regarding the ages and whether they, which program they participate in.
You know, it's a great question that we didn't even talk about, but could I just suggest, and we'll talk about this and provide some guidance. In fact, I've got a note. One of you mentioned that it'd be nice to have a book for each of the awards, or maybe for both of the awards, that would also function as a journal. And Mark, I've put that on our list of agenda items to talk about. And I like the idea. I like the idea of having a book that has all of that and maybe some resources and a journal. But one of the things that we talked about, now I've lost the question, Amy. Sorry.
With the folks that are in the older youth program.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And we'll provide guidance in that material and also online. But can I just suggest for now, go with the program that they're in. And that is, if they're registered as a youth in the program, have them work on the youth program. If they're not, then have them work on as an adult. So yeah, I have to tell you, it really doesn't make any difference to me. The reason we had those 2 awards is, one, it's easier to wear. Some adults, for example, a COR may or may not have a COR, but maybe somebody on the committee may or may not have a scout uniform, but they would be able to wear this, much like a silver beaver or silver buffalo or silver antelope or whatever else. We made it just easier for them to do that, and the scouts like to wear it on their uniforms, and so that's the reason why we had the 2 like that. So I would just suggest go with the program for now. Mark, any clarification? You're muted.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. That if you're in venturing, if you're registered as a youth and you're participating as a youth, then you can work on the youth program. And you're just going to have to make that decision. We're not going to govern that. It's going to be local decisions. We just want young people and adults to work on these requirements and receive these wonderful recognitions.
And by the way, we can see all kinds of iterations for that. For example, let's say you've got a young woman who at age 17 now and decides to work on this, and she spends a year in the venturing program, and then she becomes an advisor. Well, it doesn't make any difference. They're all the same requirements anyway. And just go through the requirements, and if she wants the adult award, then she can order the adult award. We're not going to be there's the term, the uniform Nazi, of those that make sure that they were the ones who looked at my uniform and said, 3 of your knots are on upside down. And I looked at it and I thought, I didn't even realize knots had an upside down or a right side up part. But we're not going to do that. We're interested in the youth, and we're interested about advisors and building their strength of character. So
Wonderful.
Okay.
So a quick question, if you want to cover this for Rick, he wonders if chartered units could actually, the whole unit or the chartered group could become part of Vanguard, or is it simply individual?
No, it's actually individual.
Individual.
It's all individual. Yep. So, and this is, we're particularly focusing on the adults because they're the ones that are going to strengthen this program. So, but we're glad to have members from wherever, but there are no group memberships.
Okay. Awesome.
Amy, I have a comment.
Yes.
This kind of goes back to the last several questions we've addressed, but I have just smiled as I have looked at this. I've looked at our number of participants and thought, do you all realize that you're making history? I was looking at this, thinking of these participants and thought, you know, someday someone's grandmother's going to say, you know, my dad was one of the very first ones to earn that award. I've loved the chat comments today about the old Deseret Award. I mean, I thought we were old, but you know, that goes way back. But I just think, you know, let's work together on this. We appreciate the fact that you've pointed out some issues with the awards as far as merit badges and adults, and maybe we need to change the wording on that a little bit, but we're the pioneers here and you're helping us. And so I think this input is so critical. This is the first gathering of leaders anywhere near this size that we have ever had, let alone virtually. And so you can literally say, I started on the award when it was less than 24 hours old. And I just think we need to look at this whole experience these last 2 days with such excitement. I am just so thrilled and so positive going forward to think, you know, a pioneer, it just takes that first one, that first step. And so with these awards, no, we've never done a jamboree. Nope, we've never done a week at Philmont. Nope, we've never done any of these first things, but we're going to do them all together, and how much we appreciate all your support.
That's really great. And we hope that you'll be able to join us at Philmont July 3rd of 2021. Now, just a couple of comments just briefly. I did neglect, as I was thinking and sitting here today, how could I have talked about selecting leaders without talking about the 4 T's, which are testimony, training, tenure, and time. That's important. You can find out, go online and find out comments that have been made before and that I've made in other talks. But I just appreciate all of you being here. We all appreciate as a faculty you being here today. I appreciate each member of our faculty. They've done unbelievable work in preparing for this and making themselves available for meeting after meeting after meeting. And it got more intense when we made the decision to go virtual. And yet I am so glad that we did. This has been a wonderful day. And it has been because of this faculty, but also because of each of you and the comments that you've made and just being here today. Thank you for doing that. I know that we've got some additional time as a result of this COVID-19, but I also realize that most of you are busy, and yet you chose this time on this Saturday Saturday all day to be with us and on a Friday night. And for that, I am grateful. There's a great poem that many of you have heard me quote: "The happiest nights I ever know are those where I've no place to go." And the missus says that when the day is through tonight, we haven't a thing to do. Oh, the joy of it and the peace untold of sitting round in my slippers old with music and book in my evening chair, knowing I needn't go anywhere, needn't hurry my evening meal or force the smiles that I cannot feel, but can grab a book from a nearby shelf and drop all sham and be myself. Oh, the joy of it and the comfort rare. Nothing on earth with it can compare. And I'm sorry for him who doesn't know the joy of having no place to go. Now, in this day of COVID-19, that has a different message than it had 3 months ago, because for months we've had no place to go, and yet we've used our time to do some pretty darn important things. We've reached out to people that we haven't thought about for years. We've made telephone calls, we've written notes. We've had Zoom meetings with people that we haven't seen for months, sometimes even years. We've reached out to estranged family members. We've reached out to our youth. We've tried to exercise all the creative juices that we have to be able to reach out and to minister and to love. And for you to be able to spend a night, last night, and today with us means more than you can ever know. Because it means that that's the kind of leader that you are. You're the kind of leader that our youth need. They need heroes more now than ever before in the history of this country. They need men and women that they can, when they are all alone and have a life-changing decision to make, they can say, I wonder what so-and-so would do. When they can make their Hall of Heroes, if I were a Scoutmaster again, I would spend a couple of weeks making a Hall of Heroes where they identify individuals that they have as heroes, put a picture up in a little paragraph as to why they're a hero, because they need to have somebody to look up to, and you're the ones. I will just tell you that those young people will have experiences under your tutelage that will affect them for all their lives. They will never be the same. They'll make decisions that are different than they ever made before, and they will be life-changing decisions. And when they do, they will stand in a meeting like this, or maybe at a pulpit someplace 2,000 miles away, or maybe half a world away, and they'll say, the changing time in my life came when I was in a scout meeting and my scoutmaster or my cub leader or my den mother said this, and all of a sudden my life changed. And as a result, I'm a different person, and I will ever be grateful for that individual. I have that experience with a Bob Haverfield or a Wendell Stout, who had a profound impact on me in Weiser, Idaho as a young boy. I am so grateful for them and for those of you who serve. God bless you for who you are. God bless you for your service to the Scouts that you serve. And may God bless each of us that we might be effective in touching the lives of those we serve. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.